Hi everyone, welcome back to the F1 Forum. This is episode 3 of the series, and in today's episode I'm going to be doing a bit of a review of what happened in pre-season testing this past week at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. Just going through all the teams that released their new cars and trying to see who's out there, who's done well, who hasn't done so well, and just try and get a feeler for who could be the contenders for this year. I mean, we've got a couple of teams in mind already from what we've seen so far, but let's break it down. And we start off with the defending Constructors' Champions, Mercedes. And they pretty much blew it out the park in this test. 675 laps completed between the two drivers, Rosberg and Hamilton. Over 1,000 kilometres more than what any other team managed. I think the second place team managed 2,080 kilometres compared to Mercedes 3,142. And I think their aim was primarily looking at their aerodynamic improvement on the 2016 car, seeing as it's pretty much an evolution of what they had in 2015. I mean, they had a different style front wing on the last day of the tests, and also some interesting barge boards designs. To have a look at some other videos for in-depth analysis on the overall aerodynamic performance. But yeah, they didn't really show their true pace. They were really toying with us with what they are capable of. They only used really the medium tire when the track was dry, so they've still got to run the softs, super softs and ultra softs, which will probably come at the next test, and there we'll see how much Mercedes have improved, or what's the sort of gap they have over their nearest rivals. And speaking of nearest rivals, our next team we're talking about is Ferrari. Now, they've radicalised the look of their car in terms of the front wing, the paint job. There's a bit of a throwback to one of the older Ferrari cars with the white on top. I'm not sure what to really make of that, but the front wing is definitely a change compared to what we had with the platypus nose. But they showed some good pace. I mean, they've topped 3 of the 4 pre-season test days, with Vettel topping days 1 and 2 and Raikkonen on day 4. Raikkonen had a couple of problems on day 3 when it came to a bit of I think it was an engine fault that they had, or something to do with the cooling. Maybe getting confused with McLaren there. But they seem to be up there, but it's a question of whether they reeled the gap into Mercedes enough to make it a fairer competition at the front, and to make it a bit more of a fight rather than just the two Mercedes teammates battling each other, and probably Hamilton coming out on top. I would like to see Vettel out there challenging those two Mercedes on a more regular basis. I mean, hopefully a couple more wins would be nice as well. Next up on the list are Williams. Now, in terms of this car's design, I mean, there's not much difference relative to what we had in 2015. So again, it's more of a revolution of what they've got. It's quite hard to pick out anything that's particularly different on that front, but they quietly went about their business when it came to testing. They were 4th in overall number of laps completed with 377, but it's a question mark as to where they are in terms of performance. I think if you do the maths on the BBC, there's a BBC Sport link. I'll leave it in the description, telling us overall performance lap time relative to fuel load and also tyres they use. I think they're actually being beaten by Force India, but we've got another test to come, so they're probably still the 3rd or 4th best team on the grid. But we just have to, again, this is pre-season testing, that we don't really know what sort of fuel loads they were running, or we do know what tyres they're running, but what the fuel loads were like, and whether this is the actual full-time package that Williams will bring to Melbourne. Moving on now to Red Bull, the first of the Renault, quote, Tag Heuer engine power units. I mean, it's just a sponsor thing, that's why it's still a Renault engine in that car. To be honest, I'm one of the only people that actually likes this new colour scheme on the new Red Bull. I don't know what people don't like about it. I think it's a welcome change from the purple that we've had before, and it's a good, nice bit of red on the Red Bull actual logo. That's quite unique. I mean, in terms of the actual testing though, they were 5th on overall lap times. They actually beat Ferrari by 16 laps over the 4 days. I mean, it was a much better pre-season test than what we've had the last couple of years when they've suffered from reliability. So I think Renault have booked their ideas up when it comes to reliability, but it's hard to say again. But hoping Red Bull are possibly in the top 3. They may be struggling at the start of the season with the Renault power, but if they can get their act together, combined with a good Red Bull chassis, they could challenge the likes of a Ferrari and Mercedes on the slower tracks like a Monaco, a Singapore, a Hungary, etc. Who knows, even at some of the faster circuits, if Renault book their ideas up and actually produce a really good, a decent engine that doesn't lag behind as much. I mean, it looks like they have made him steps forward though, so that is a very good sign. Next up on the list are Force India. Now, the car doesn't look that much different relative to what we had at the back end of last season. Again, it's more of a evolution of what we've had, what the car was at the back end of last season. The preseason tester was very promising. I mean, Hulkenberg managed to go fastest on day 3 of the tests, and that time was actually the second fastest time of the overall 4 days. Of course, that was using the Ultrasoft, so again, it's not a real representation relative to some of the other teams that didn't run their car to the absolute limit. But there's welcome, promising signs for this team. Apparently, they've got a new aerodynamic upgrade coming for the first race. So this is not the finished product for Force India. I mean, we could definitely see them possibly be dark horses for more podium finishes over the course of the season if teams in front like a Ferrari or Mercedes mess up on certain weekends. And Hulkenberg looks fired up. Sergio Perez has also said very optimistic things about this car. So it's quite promising times for this team. I think that 5th place last season really gave them some very good momentum into the winter. So fingers crossed this team can possibly be the head of the midfield. We now move on to a team that didn't really have a very good preseason test, and that is Renault. The new Renault team that took over Lotus at the back end of last season. In terms of overall performance, they had a couple of reliability issues. I mean, Jolyon Palmer suffered more of these gremlins compared to what Kevin Magnussen did. Magnussen had a couple of problems on the final day, but was able to get in a good number of laps in terms of testing. But this could be a real struggle for Renault in their comeback year. I mean, it's very hard to say where they're going to be. They're probably going to be challenging the lower end of the midfield at best, possibly in the mix of the midfield, but I don't see much happening for Renault this season. It's going to be possibly 2017 when the rule changes kick in again that will see Renault a bit more competitive. Moving on to Toro Rosso. Now, they had to make a couple of adjustments to the rear end of the car to support the Ferrari power units after they got the Ferrari deal quite late at the end of last season after running Renault for the past couple of years. In terms of the testing though, they actually were second when it came to overall laps and distance completed over the 4 days. Carlos Sainz managing 161 laps on the 3rd day, so that's very good data for the Italian team, or the Red Bull B team as well. And I think they could actually beat Red Bull at the early points of the start of the season, particularly at the power tracks such as China and Bahrain with the long straights, because of their Ferrari power. It is a 2016 engine apparently that they've got in the back of the car. So again, it's another interesting story to see where Toro Rosso will be and how Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz do in their second seasons. We're now going to skip to McLaren because Sauber didn't actually run their 2016 car. They only ran the 2015 car over this test, and they're bringing the 2016 car for the next test, so we'll talk about them then. But for McLaren, what a difference a season makes when it comes to testing. They've managed to actually do more than one race distance compared to what they managed last year, which was absolute pants. So it looks like there's promising signs in terms of reliability, except for the final day when Alonso suffered a cooling problem and was only able to do 3 laps before the day was unfortunately cut short. In terms of performance though, Eric Boulier has come out and said that it's not good enough, so that's a worrying sign already for the team after at least a year of struggle. Could there be a second season of struggle for McLaren? I mean, I would hopefully not have that to happen, but Alonso is quite optimistic. He says if we can get the best chassis by the European races, then we'll possibly be in good shape. Just that whether Honda can actually sort themselves out, as I've mentioned with Red Bull, it's okay putting a lot of aerodynamics on the car, but if you're not fast in a straight line at the high-speed circuits, then you're going to be in massive trouble. But we'll have to see where McLaren are. Maybe I'm being a bit pessimistic. We'll see what happens in the second test. We now move on to Manor. Now, they've revolutionised their car when it comes to, I think, aerodynamic design and also delivery. It looks very neat with the red and blue, and they've gone for the platypus nose style aerodynamic front wing, like how Ferrari did in 2015. I'm not sure how much that's going to give them in terms of aero, but it looks like they may be on the way up in terms of performance, because even though they were last when it came to overall testing laps, some of the times that they've been doing have been pretty promising. I mean, Pascal Wehrlein is a talent, I think. Mercedes highly rate him, as I've mentioned before in the first F1 forum video. Not sure what to make of Rio Haryato. I mean, he's had a couple of errors already during the testing. I think he spun into the wall a couple of times during his running. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully he's not another UGE day. That would definitely be very disappointing on Manor's side. But we could definitely see Manor being in the midfield for a change, unlike what we've had in the past couple of years, where they're consistently being on the back row and rarely getting into Q2, where one of the drivers was managing to outperform the car. And possibly we could see Manor scoring some points, which would be absolutely amazing, considering where the team was at this point last season, just getting out of administration and just about making it onto the grid. And last but almost certainly not least, we have the Haas F1 team's first ever F1 car as the team makes its debut for the 2016 season. In terms of design, it actually is quite basic in terms of aerodynamics, but that's what's expected for a first team. They had also a couple of problems during the testing, where they had a front wing failure on the first day, and I think they broke down a couple of times in the last couple of days, but I think they've made some good progress. Grosjean and Gutierrez have been very happy with the progress that this new team has made. I mean, this is a new team. We've got to expect that they're going to suffer some problems. But Grosjean set the second fastest time on the third day of the test. So the signs are very good when it comes to this team. They've got Ferrari backing when it comes to. I think they use the wind tunnel. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they've got the Ferrari power unit for definite. A 2016 Ferrari power unit, so that's definitely going to help them out when it comes to performance. I think they might be faster than Sauber, which could be a definite step forward for them, and possibly challenging for points. I mean, Grosjean has come out and said, "Oh, we're targeting points as soon as possible," which is possible, I think, in 2016. But it's a question of whether when, not if, in my opinion. And that is the end of my mini review of the first pre-season test. I'd like to hear what you think on the what's happened over the past couple of days in terms of testing. Who's done well, who hasn't done well, and who do you think could be dark horses for this season, whether it's at the front, in the midfield, or even near the back with the new teams such as Haas and Manor. Also, check out the podcast, a new podcast series that's actually come up on Arava's channel. It's CalHD and Tom97HD. They talk about their views on the preseason tests, and also about the F1 2017 rules, and also the new qualifying system that's apparently going to be implemented. To be honest, I'm not a massive fan of the new qualifying system. It's going to be make it quite interesting to see how teams play it when it comes to when they run. I don't think there will be any banker laps style qualifying sessions like Mercedes do at the start, where they set a time on the primes and then, okay, if they have to, set a time on the options. But that's probably not gonna happen anymore. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's quite a revolutionary thing, so we'll wait and see what the overall impact is. But yeah, if you enjoyed this little review, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video, whether it's either F1 Gaming or in another F1 forum. Probably we'll be talking about the second test and breaking down who's looking in good shape going into Melbourne. Until then, see you later.